The underlying fear during any shipwreck is the thought of drowning in the depths of the sea. This dark notion came to pass for the 162 passengers and crew on board Le Seyne on a fateful night near Singapore in 1909. What they couldn't have known was that the deadly jaws of sharks awaited them below. On the moonless, hazy night of November 14, 1909, the French oceanliner Le Seyne collided with the Onda, a British steamship, and then rapidly sank to the dark sea floor. Over 100 of Le Seyne's passengers and crew died, many drowned, and many more were horrifically mauled to death by man-eating sharks. Le Seyne was a 2,500-ton, 375-foot-long, white-hulled passenger vessel, captained by Jean Coyac. It carried passengers from smaller ports to the main harbors of the Far East. On this fateful voyage, Le Seyne left Batavia, the Dutch East Indies capital on the island of Java, and embarked on its regular journey north to Singapore, across the deep waters of the Java Sea. Much like today, Singapore was a large, bustling port in 1909. The ship left port on a sunny, tranquil afternoon that bode well for Le Seyne. The voyage was a routine 750-mile journey from what's now known as Jakarta, Indonesia. Prior to this tragic voyage, Le Seyne had successfully completed this journey countless times before. The crew and the passengers were at ease. They enjoyed the typical amenities of an early 20th century passenger ship. Comfortable bunks, pleasant decor, fine dining, and incomparable tropical views. The weather was pleasant, the sea was calm, and the journey was without incident for several days. On the night of November 13th, Le Seyne's crew was unaware that a larger British commercial steamship was about to set sail. This vessel was helmed by Captain J. Doggy, and it was sailing south from Singapore, headed to Tegal, Java, and directly toward Le Seyne. That ship was the Onda. That night, the favorable weather quickly changed for the worse. The clear skies darkened, and a thick smoke-like haze engulfed the important and narrow commercial waterway of Riu Strait, a 50-mile-long shipping corridor close to Singapore. Visibility quickly became poor, and despite this, Le Seyne continued at its top speed of 13 knots. Heading south without worry, the Onda passed the Pulau Sao lighthouse at 4:20 a.m., where the strait narrows to just 2 miles wide. The ships drew closer and closer to one another, oblivious of what lay ahead. The lookout men on duty would not see the other vessel until it was too late, and the disaster was already beginning. At 4:35 a.m., the ships were rapidly steaming directly toward one another, and were only several hundred yards apart when the crew on each ship finally saw the other vessel. It was at that moment that both captains reacted in exactly the wrong way. Le Seyne steered portside, crossing ahead of the Onda. Meanwhile, the Onda sounded its horn and veered hard starboard, directly towards Le Seyne. Le Seyne's whistle returned one desperate blast just moments before the Onda forcefully rammed her starboard side, deeply gashing its hull and immediately filling Le Seyne with water, causing Le Seyne's boiler to explode. The impact and explosion nearly severed Le Seyne in half. The cabins, where most of the passengers were still sleeping, forcefully flooded, and the sea rapidly washed over the deck. Le Seyne sank in less than 2 minutes. Its demise transpired so rapidly that its crew had no time to lower its lifeboats. The Onda's bow was damaged, but it remained afloat. Wreckage was strewn about the sea. Le Seyne's passengers and crew were thrust into the ocean as their terrified shouts filled the air. The Onda promptly lowered 3 lifeboats. According to the July 13, 1913 edition of an English newspaper, the first of the passengers had scarcely touched the water before a shoal of sharks was circling the scene. and dragging down scores of men and women who never came up again. The once calm water rippled with the dorsal fins of numerous sharks, which viciously attacked the shipwrecked passengers who were clinging to the floating remains of Seyne. Survivors floated amongst the dead as the tiger sharks of Riu Strait attacked their screaming victims with a vengeance. The Onda's crew desperately pulled as many people from the sea as they could reach. 61 passengers and crew were saved from the nightmare. 101 souls were lost that night, either by drowning or by being torn apart by the jaws of sharks. As the Onda sailed back to Singapore, it carried not just the survivors of Seyne, but also the weight of an unspeakable tragedy that had been etched into the waters of the Riu Strait. In the silent depths where Seyne now rests, rusted and empty, the haunting echoes of that fateful night remain. A poignant tribute to lives lost and a once vibrant vessel swallowed by the ocean's cold embrace.